deserve it. We be treated like a bum, you know this unheard of. You better watch how you're talking and where you're walking, or you and your homies might be lying in chalk. I really had the trip, but I got a luck. As the croak, I see myself in the pistol smoke. Fool, I'm the kind of G the little homies wanna be like, on my knees in the night, saying prayers in the street light. Kids spend the most of their lives living in the gangster's paradise. Kids spend the most of their lives living in the gangster's paradise.
And welcome into the first ever iteration of Inside ARCS Live. We're live here on YouTube on Raggy Productions, where we post all our podcasts and multiple other different types of productions, as well as our podcast is over on the Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You can search Inside ARCS and be able to find all of that. Thank you for coming out and joining us today. For right now, at least, I am joined by Ryan Pinnell. Ryan, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. Unemployed, so don't have a job, so I get to talk with you and talk about ARCS at 10 o'clock in the morning. So
Yeah.
we're missing Stitch, the one that this was his idea, so he may have partied too hard last night. So.
Yeah, we'll see if we catch a Stitch sighting here. It's 10 a.m. where Ryan is. It's 10 p.m. where I am. So flip sides of the clock, but on the same date. We like to work. We don't have too much of a, I guess what you say, an agenda coming up, but we've got some questions that have come through the ARCS family, and Ryan and myself have compiled those. And then if you're looking or wondering anything about ARCS, or just want to ask a random question, throw it there in the live chat and we will answer it as soon as it pops up. Also, like and subscribe to the video. Share this out for everyone that you know or don't know, so they can tag along and become part of the ARCS family. So thank you again for joining us here this evening or this morning, depending on the location you are currently in. Ryan, what do you say? Let's do this first. We've got Atlanta coming up this week, both in real life and in our sim world with the ARCS family. What's your expectations coming both in real world and in sim world?
Real world, I think it'll be kind of like Daytona and Talladega, obviously, but it's, they have to kind of worry about handling a little bit more just because of how the track is. In sim world, I'm very worried. Luckily, I will not be there Sunday night, so if it goes bad, I don't have to deal with it. So I'm not really too worried about it. But yeah, I mean, I've run a few officials this week, and I mean, it really wasn't that bad. Of course, you had your people that were just didn't know what the hell they were doing, but hopefully we don't have that Sunday night. But I'll definitely probably be watching. The Atlanta race starts, I think, at 3, and so probably it'll finish up right when our race starts. So I'm looking forward to it, but won't be in the field, unfortunately.
Yeah, looking forward to both on-track action through this weekend as well as in simulation action, and seeing how everything goes. I got a glimpse a little bit this morning of the Xfinity practice, and it looked like you get about 5 or 6 laps, and then I don't know if people maybe just lost their cool or just tried a move that they were testing out, but it looked like about 5 or 6 laps, and then there would be chaos on track. Hopefully that winds down. We know the Cup race will probably be a snooze fest for the first 2 stages until someone decides to go, and then we see what happens. I got to watch the Coke Series race on YouTube put on by iRacing, and they were 2 and 3 wide literally throughout. The only difference was they used the apron on the front stretch, which is something they're not going to be able to do in real life. So that made it more interesting, but it's also where the chaos started when they started making bigger moves. In the real world, they moved the pit road entry up to the beginning of turn 3. You have to be at pit road speed in turn 3. One, what's your opinion of that and seeing that in play for race day for the trucks, Xfinity, and Cup? And then also for ARCS, is that something that we're going to try and require, or because iRacing still has it back by pit wall, it's just going to be on apron in 3 but speed by the line?
Yeah, it'll be similar to well, I say Daytona, but that's a little different. We are going to require everyone to basically be on the apron in 3 and 4 if you're going to pit. But obviously we can't enforce the speed limit just because there's no way to do that without iRacing having, that built in. So we will require people to exit off of pretty much the back straightaway into 3. And then drivers will be responsible. I mean, if they want to run 190 down there and, go up and wreck the whole field, then they can. But there'll be a penalty assessed for that. So, yeah, we're going to make them go down in 3 and 4, but obviously we can't enforce the speed rule, not until iRacing adds it, which I'm sure they will at some point.
I think that's probably one of the easier fixes iRacing is looking at, and they're like, oh wow, we can do that, no problem. We just got to move a line. Give me a break, I can do that. We've got our first guest popping into the studio, old Dustin Painter. What he doesn't know is we are live on camera too, so his moniker from Discord is currently up on screen, but he's live in studio with us. He'll pop in here in a little bit when he gets a chance to run his mic open. There is that beautiful face, Dustin Painter live. How you doing, big dog?
Just chilling on a day off.
Hey, we got all sorts of time zones going on now, a 10 a.m. and a 10 p.m. and now we got a guy in a truck on a day off, so we're rocking and rolling. We've been talking about Atlanta, both in the real world and in sim, and we were just talking about the pit road entry change for the real world into turn 3. What's your kind of opinion or assessment of how that could go?
Well, in the real world, safety is key. There's just no way you can come off of turn 4 without just wadding a bunch of cars up. It will mean that pit stop's going to be really, really long, just for the simple fact of how much you got to slow down into the backstretch to 3 and 4. So green flag pit stops possibly in the real world 2 laps down. It's going to be probably going to happen if you had to green flag pit stop it.
Yeah, I could see that. It could almost have that Bristol effect where you've spent so much time at that speed, at the 45 or 50, whatever they're going with this week, and someone being a knucklehead up on track cost many guys track position or their race, depending on where it lands. What do you think about the races coming up, both for Ignition and A Squared, for the Atlanta? Ryan has already said, we're going to follow the pit road entry rules, which is just the safest way. Even though we can enforce speed, it's still going to be an apron entry and exit when it comes to Ignition and A Squared. But what are you kind of predicting from the racing action down to maybe a dark horse winner?
The racing action will be crazy. You can't go 3 wide, but somebody will try. They can't in real life either, really. You can try. I mean, it could probably work. It's just going to take a lot of give and take. But that's just we struggle at Daytona going 3 wide in our sim world. So I just Atlanta's probably going to be even worse. So I don't know. I think uh, on the pit stop side, just my fear is somebody just overcooking and coming straight back up the track and killing the field, which can happen in the real world possibly too. So, like I say, Atlanta, dark horse wise, just anybody. There are guys that will use strategies to ride in the back and wait till all heck breaks loose and maybe the cars diminish and you've got a few cars left and you got a faster pair, maybe you can be a little more aggressive and be there at the end. And then you got guys who will just go up front and try to stay up front and hope to avoid the wrecks. You just never know these tracks. You never know, you could be last and get involved in a wreck, or you can be first and get involved in a wreck. So be interesting to see the different strategies between everybody on how they're going to do everything. But we'll see. I expect a lot of cautions.
I think that's kind of the expectation going in. I think if everyone made a goal, let's run, 15 straight green flag laps, I think everyone's nerves would come down a little bit and understand, all right, this is where I need to be. This is how my vehicle feels in all my different situations because I've been up to speed for a while. I think we get a little rambunctious early in those first 5 laps. And I think that goes for any track. I think if you make it past 5 laps at any track, you're like, okay, everyone's settled into a groove, has a little bit of a rhythm, and now we go. Anywhere in that 0 to 5 lap range, though, is a coin toss, a roll of the dice, and maybe just a wish good luck. Ryan, when we look at what's coming up for A squared, we're about a third of the way through the first, or we're a third of the way through the first 12 race block where rosters and things could change and whatnot. Do you see some owners starting to, query on that roster change window that has been posted?
Yeah, I think you will. Especially maybe some of the teams that are, having some attendance issues with some of their drivers. When we drafted everybody, we got commitment from them that they would be, at these races as much as possible. Obviously, life gets in the way sometimes, and that's understandable. But, there could be some drivers that are missing races and not communicating with their owners that they're not going to be there, and simple stuff like that. So yeah, I definitely think that there's some owners that are going to be looking at that Xfinity roster. I mean, you got people like Alfie, you got Mike LaJoy is over there. There's several others that have just showed so much speed. But again, those drivers are on Seth's team in the Xfinity series, so I don't see Seth changing any of his drivers with him being at the top of the points lead. But who's to say that Black Acid or maybe even me or another team owner doesn't steal one of those guys from Seth. It's very, very, very possible. I mean, at this point, you see it in real life too. Xfinity drivers do normally move up with the same, team in Cup, but not always. I mean, if an opportunity arises, Noah Gregson's a good example. I mean, these guys want to be in Cup on the sim world side just like they do in real life. So I think that's kind of exciting. I think it'll be exciting to see if anybody does make any moves. Obviously everybody's kind of keeping quiet about, any speculations of what they might do for obvious reasons. Nobody wants to lose their job, even in the sim world. But I think it'll be exciting, and I think we probably will see maybe, I would say 3 or 4 driver changes after that first 12 races.
Yeah, 3 or 4 could be steep, and that's one good thing about non-exclusive, contracts per se is, they've signed contracts, but they have at the same time. But it's a free for all. If you're released, if you're in that ignition program, you're up for grabs. Big news and back in the real world, with the penalties being assessed to Hendrick Motorsports and Colleague Racing, as well as Denny Hamlin for his actions. Obviously, different scenarios and actions that have happened. Let's start with the easier one, I think, and that's the Denny Hamlin Ross Chastain incident where there was nothing going to happen, and then Denny went to his podcast and talked about uh, doing it on purpose, and that they had the talk, and that a truce has been fired. But NASCAR has come down and said, "Oh, you're going to do that on purpose, and you're going to admit to it. Well, here comes 25 large ones plus some points." Dustin, what do you think of NASCAR's ruling down on Denny Hamlin?
I am not a big fan. Now, let me be honest. I'm not a Hamlin fan, but I'm not a big fan for one reason. And Mike Davis brought it up on the Dale Jr. Download, their Tuesday edition. You're almost going to set these drivers to go back into a shell. Um, we want more openness from the drivers, whether it be podcast or just content overall. And Denny was just telling his side of the story of what he did. Did he do it? Yes. Did NASCAR catch him? No. People wanted to bring up, I saw on social media, they wanted to bring up Bubba Wallace. That was something NASCAR caught. William Byron, that was something NASCAR caught. This is something NASCAR didn't catch. They would have never thought about this had he not said that on a podcast.
Right.
It's just, to me, you're opening the door now for drivers to say, you know what, I'm not going to voice my opinion on things. Now, at the racetrack, if they get a microphone and the guy says, "Yeah, I dumped him," NASCAR's there. It's at the event. This is a couple days or a day later. It was his podcast. He did it Monday morning,
Yeah.
and it didn't come out till like Monday evening. That to me, I'm telling you guys, I got a fear that you're going to see drivers close up on situations, not want to tell us exactly what happened. And I just, NASCAR says we want drivers to handle their own business in a good way. You don't want what Bubba did, but handle their business but amongst drivers. And Denny was racing. It was time for a payback with Ross. And as he said, it was a time for a payback where it wasn't going to involve any other drivers.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
we had an incident in our ignition last week where a driver took it on his hands to try to pay a guy back, and it cost other drivers. And that was not a good thing. It was addressed and taken care of. But you try not to involve other drivers when you're paying a guy back. Now, me personally, I think Denny probably should have done it for a win. But, Denny's like, hey, it's not going to cost anybody else. And then, as he said, it cost him in the end.
Yeah, he blatantly admitted to being like, "Look, I saw red, and he was my only target," and so that's what he went after. And so he admits it. 25 large ones coming from his bank account or from Michael Jordan's bank account, I don't know. And then 25 driver, I think it was driver and owner points, is what he was.
It's 50,000. 50,000
50.
and 20.
Okay. So,
I think he won that. He won that in Vegas, so pretty much now his Vegas winnings are a wash.
He might have known he was gonna get a little bit of a thrashing when he's like, "I'm gonna admit this," but you know what? They're just gonna take the stuff I won from the casino. So that's an interesting theory behind it. Ryan will flip it towards the Hendrick penalties. Four cars, all penalized for their louvers. I think I'm saying that right. Being slightly modified or messed with. And NASCAR's like, no, that's a single source product. You can't do that. Even though they took them from them and they raced stock ones and went out and kicked everyone's butt at Phoenix, all four drivers ended up with penalties, 100, I think it was 100 car points, 100 driver points. Crew chiefs are gone for 4 races on all 4 cars. The only driver not penalized was Chase Elliott because he wasn't in the car, and Josh Berry's not accumulating driver points, so he doesn't take any penalty. And then they all lost 10 playoff points, which eliminates Byron's 2 wins, so he's back to a couple playoff points because of stage wins. What do you think about the severity of it, Ryan? And do you think it's warranted, or is it something maybe they overshot again like they did with RFK, or is it right on the nose?
I love it because now I can give out 100-point penalties in A squared. Now that NASCAR did it. I mean, yeah, I mean it's rules are rules, man. I mean, we can. I'm sure Seth Seth would sit here. Seth actually was going to join, but he thought we were doing it 10 p.m., not 10 a.m. So I guess he thought he was over there with you in Taiwan. But I'm sure he would say that it's too severe. But I think rules are rules. I mean,
Yeah.
if you break them, there's going to be repercussions to that, and you can't really argue it. I mean, the rule book's been out. NASCAR's told these teams and drivers and owners what they can and cannot do, and yeah, obviously it didn't really affect their performance because they took them away, and they still performed really well. But who's to say that they don't have 3 other parts that are not on the stock list of parts? I mean, that's what NASCAR is. I mean, you find any way to get an advantage, and you capitalize on it, and you try and do you try and bend the rule book and basically not get caught. But then when you do get caught, you're going to pay for it. So that's just what NASCAR has always been. I mean, ever since the first days when they were running on Daytona Beach, you had people. Smokey Yunick was one of the best at taking the rule book and bending it. And it's crazy because even in sim world, we have people do the same damn thing. I mean, they read the rule book and they go, well, rule didn't say I couldn't do this, or the rule said I could do this, but not that. I mean, it's just the nature of competition, man. I mean, you're always trying to find an upper hand, and sometimes that's taking the rules and bending them, or just completely cheating and just hoping that you don't get caught. And then when you do get caught, you look kind of stupid. But I don't think it'll affect Hendrick as far as in real life. I mean, obviously they're still fast, but like I said, who's to say that they don't have 3 other parts that don't meet NASCAR criteria? So it's
Now
we'll see.
This is only the second time a part has been taken and said, okay, this is completely wrong, and here comes a harsh penalty. And then the only other one was Denny Hamlin's, I think it was Hamlin's car, had the piece of tape that was keeping the wrap sealed down, and that they're like, you can't have that, it's an added piece. But this is only the second time they've taken a part from a team and then given out the consequences for messing with a single source part. We knew that these cars were going to be put it together out of a box, and now that they're all learned up and they're got a multiple inventory of it up, do you think this is a Hendrick wide thing? Dustin, I'll come to you on this one. It's a Hendrick wide thing because all 4 cars had the same modification or change. At least that's the rumor. We don't exactly know what the changes were. They could all had just been like beaten into place because they weren't fitting, and then NASCAR called that a modification. Is it something that Hendrick found and did and tried to sneak by, or are we missing something?
Well, there was a memo sent to the Chevy camp about that they were having that there was some part issues with the louvers, and NASCAR was aware of it. That they had some parts. Obviously, NASCAR knew of the situation, that some of them weren't fitting, and that I guess they were going to try to rectify it with the person or the company that builds them. But the way NASCAR works, especially in that Cup garage and in any form of NASCAR, people like to talk sometimes, and it could be a low-level person. I don't think it was coincidence that NASCAR on a Friday went straight to certain teams right away and knew that they were running parts. rumors happen or spread throughout the garage. It's a soap opera, 100% on Cup Xfinity truck. Um, all it takes is your buddy over there happened to
Yeah.
spill the beans on something about something, and as I told Seth in the chat, I was like, y'all got a problem with somebody talking in your camp, because obviously NASCAR knew right away who to go to,
Yep.
and obviously Hendrick had it. It's kind of interesting. Hendrick had it. You know that they probably went. And it's just NASCAR. If they know one team's got it, they're gonna check them all.
Mhm.
They're going to, I mean, Hendrick's not the only team that got busted. Justin Haley's team got busted, which I think that's a bigger implication than the Hendrick bunch, because I truly think Rick Hendrick's teams will make the chase,
Yeah.
and it's going to cost some money. It's going to cost some fine or some points, but I think they could probably rally back. Justin Haley's team, on the other hand, $100,000. Yeah, their owner's got a lot of money, so that's not. He doesn't have Rick money, but he's got a lot of money. But it hurts their chances of getting in that top 16
Yeah.
if they don't win. It's almost what it did to Brad Keselowski last year. Pretty much makes it almost impossible for that team. But I have seen I was trying to find the team last year that filed an appeal about a part that was the manufacturer was struggling to make, and they won the appeal, and I cannot remember who the team
I
is now.
think what wasn't it the wheels? They were saying the wheel something was wrong with the wheel, so they had to make modification to the wheel. And NASCAR was like, you can't do
I
that.
think it was Chris.
It might have been
I think it was
Busher.
Chris Buescher's team.
Yeah, and then NASCAR went and looked and like, you're right. Everyone can make this modification if it so pleases you. And so they are like, okay, that one's okay. That's a
Well,
production problem. But I don't know that
so
a body piece has ever been disputed, whereas like a wheel piece where a metal has changed or become deformed and they need to modify it. Then this is a carbon fiber piece that should not be. It's being literally computer generated. It shouldn't have a problem.
yeah, and so most people don't realize the appeal process. The appeal process is not through NASCAR. It's actually an independent board that meets. Um, Honestly, I spot at Bowman Gray Stadium in Caraway a lot. One of those members is one of the people that runs Bowman Gray Stadium. It used to be one of the members that owned Caraway, but they're no longer NASCAR sanctioned track. But it's actually people that run racetracks. Former people in the series and stuff like that. So usually it's a 3-panel board that they will go appeal to, and that board kind of it's not NASCAR wipes its hands clean of persuading a board. Hendrick will bring their case to the 3-panel board, and they will vote on it, and you guys go 2-1, 3-0, 1-2, whatever. But that the appellate board will listen to that. It'd be interesting. I always think it's interesting. I always want to know what 3 members are going to be the 3 members on that board,
Yeah.
because kind of feel like sometimes when I see a driver who gets fined a lot appeal, and maybe a Bowman Gray Stadium, the guy who runs Bowman Gray Stadium is on that, sometimes that driver gets his fine a little bit less because Bowman Gray's a little more Wild West.
Yeah.
And I've noticed that. But usually when it comes to parts, it usually doesn't favor the team that's appealing. But Hendrick may have a case.
We will see. I'm sure it'll come down in about a week's time as they look through. Obviously, all 4 pieces probably are the same, so they're not gonna have to have 4 separate cases. But I highly doubt they're gonna. I highly doubt they're gonna get all those points back. But like you said, I don't think it's gonna hurt them too bad. Saying that though, Ryan, which team do you think is at the biggest detriment from losing a crew chief?
Ugh. I would probably say the 9 car, just because Chase Elliott's not in it. I
Yeah.
mean that's you're already struggling with a new driver in a new car, and then you take away the crew chief. That makes it even more difficult, I think. So I would probably say that 9 car. The other teams, I mean, yeah, it is it does suck that they lose their crew chief, but I mean, nothing really is going to change other than who's on top of the box. So I mean, Hendrick obviously is such a large corporation. They have, checklists and stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
it's basically like going through a pre-flight checklist in an airplane. I mean, you check off all the boxes and then make sure that you communicate to your driver. And I mean, let's be honest, Hendrick, they have so much talent, off the racetrack there that I don't see it really being an issue. But for the 9 car, I think it's more of an issue because you don't have Chase Elliott in the car.
Yeah.
You have, some of these other drivers that don't really understand the next gen as much. So it's harder for them to say, hey, the car sucks, but they don't know
They don't know
necessarily
why.
what to, yeah, they don't really know what to tell the crew chief. And then now you have a backup crew chief in there, and it just makes it, just one more step of kind of complication to it. But
Yeah.
so I would say the 9 car probably.
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say they're gonna not struggle, but obviously they're gonna be a little bit behind on adjustments. So hopefully they nail setups from practice and into their qualifying runs. They're obviously gonna set their cars up to race and not qualify. But I I think Hendrick, all top three, Bowman, Byron, Larson, are gonna go and barnstorm the field for the next 10 to 12 weeks because they're just gonna start like, hey, how many playoff points can we rack up? Stages, wins. We're all 10 behind. Byron's the only one that's at even. We're all 10 behind. Let's go and see how far out there they can get. And they've got, I think, the advantage in speed and the momentum right now. So look out for Hendrick to barnstorm the next 10 to 12 weeks. Just not mad, but just saying, well, fine, we're going to beat the crap out of everyone, and we're going to win 19, 20, 22 races this season. So I think that's a possibility, and I think it's becoming more a better possibility as this story continues to unfold.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
We had our
I've seen.
go
I'm
ahead
sorry.
go ahead. Last point.
I was, I was just going to tell you about crew chief. So, happen to know Jason Ratcliffe, who is the crew chief for the 19 Xfinity team. He got suspended one time for a few weeks, and he was still there, but not there in a sense. He was in a hotel near the track. They had a communication where he could communicate with the team. Yes, you're relying kind of on a TV kind of deal, but they had real world technology. And if you look at like RCR, they actually have engineers back in a more or less a war room
Yep.
who communicate back and forth with their team. So losing a crew chief, yes and no. It's the 2 tires, 4 tires. We got to make a split second decision thing
Yeah.
is the bigger thing that you're missing out of that crew chief. But like I said, I've seen crew chiefs kind of, they're there but not there.
Yeah, this is true. We had our first question come in. This came through our Discord, and I posted it there in the chat so you can see it up on screen. And it comes from our guest here in the studio, Mr. Dustin Painter. And he asked, what driver would you like to see drive a spaceship? Ryan, how far off this planet do you want to go?
NASCAR driver.
NASCAR. I mean, obviously,
NASCAR.
like Verstappen and Hamilton are already driving spaceships. They just still are on the ground.
Yeah.
But NASCAR driver, past, present, of old times, whatever you want to go with. How far off Earth you taking him?
Well, I'm gonna pick 2. I'm gonna do a past and then a present. So for my past driver, I always would have loved to see Casey Kane run in Indy, just because of his background with dirt and everything. I mean, it's open wheel dirt as well. Obviously still not the same machine, not even close, but still with that open wheel experience that he had, would really love to see that. And then present, of course, me being a Blaney fan, I would love to see him do it. I don't think it'll ever happen. And then of course the one that everybody's excited about is Kyle Larson, actually getting his shot next year. So that will be very, very interesting. I think it's a big plus for, I don't even know if I can say IndyCar on the podcast without us getting banned.
We
But
just can't put their car up. No pictures.
okay. Yeah. Well, this car behind me is not an Indy car, although it looks like one with the broke front tire and wheel. But I think that's a huge plus because you're gonna have a hell of a lot of NASCAR fans watching that race that beforehand would not have or may not have.
Yeah.
Now you're gonna have Kyle Larson fans, you're gonna have NASCAR fans, all tuning into that race, to see what he can do. So that's my answer.
Well, Dustin, you posed the question. That means you have to have an answer somewhere in the back of your mind that you already formulated.
Well, present Kyle Busch. Just he adapts so well to so many race cars that I'd like to see him. I'd like to see him. He's very competitive with his brother. I'd like to see, he wants to outdo his brother for best finish. As a rookie, Kurt did an amazing job at Indy when he ran. So of course Kyle, and then I guess the past for me, probably in the older IndyCar days, would have loved to seen a Richard Petty actually drive an IndyCar. He did the drag racing and did it well. He did the NASCAR racing and did it well. Just the Mario Andretti and Richard Petty dueled in the Daytona 500, but would have been cool to see him duel in the IndyCar. Only problem is Richard is very, very tall.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
I don't know how he would have fit in an IndyCar. Of course, I think back in the older days, the IndyCar wasn't as tiny.
Yeah, it's a little longer
now.
Little longer.
Yeah, a little. So maybe he could have fit in it, but maybe not, because that dude is. People don't understand until you see him in person what a size man that man actually is.
Yeah, so we've got our second question coming in through live chat, and I don't know how facetious it may be or sarcastic it may be, but I think this is directed towards Ryan as a owner and creator. Would you consider a series based around the bracket challenge we have, so drivers couldn't practice until the day of a track car combo not known till day of? I think maybe he's looking at it as like, here's a 10 race schedule, but you don't know what car and track is going to be that day.
Yeah, it's not out of the question. Honestly, the bracket challenge has, taken forever. But that's what happens when you put 64 drivers, in a bracket. Schedules just don't work out, and it's hard to schedule the races. But yeah, I do like that. The only, I guess, negative is obviously you'd have to keep it to pretty much either free tracks or tracks that guys own, as well as the cars, because you can't do last minute say, oh, we're gonna run IndyCar at Long Beach and then nobody have the track or car.
Yeah, it's something I know. Like the biggest league that runs is the Monday Night Racing League with all the different professionals and things like that, and the people in the NASCAR circle world, and they do that where they're pairing up, but it's still a lot of maybe one off track and off car where it's like, okay, this one rarely ever gets run, but they're primarily using high popularity things. NASCAR Xfinity at Homestead, that's hugely popular. IndyCar at Kansas, that's hugely popular. Different, and then every now and then they throw in pro light trucks at Watkins Glen, and you're like, how the hell is that gonna work? And then you watch it and you're like, I get why some of these guys are some of the best that are on the service. But I like his idea, and like you said, keeping it, kind of in a smaller circled realm until you're able to be like, hey, we're gonna stretch out and grab this little weird track and car and throw it in for one season. The other 9 races are normal. Dustin, do you think that'd be something that you could wrap around and be like, all right, I don't know what we're doing this week, but it's gonna be fun?
We used to kind of do this with grassroots. We used to do the wheel that had the car and had the track, and we kind of just kind of it was our Sunday back in the older days. It's only like a year and a half ago or 2 years ago. It was just our mix-up league, and the wheel. Brian Rupert would spin the wheel and it'd land on something and land on Legends cars at Lakeland or USA. And that's what we did that week. And that was, kind of after the race, after the original race, we'd spin a wheel and that was it. That was where we're going next. And it was kind of cool, kind of fun. I loved it. I love getting in different race cars and not being in the same race car over and over and over again. But I mean, it's something that, I love. I love being in different cars. Some people just love, they're only going to run the trucks. They're only going to run the Cup. They're only going to run Xfinity. They're only going to run super late models. That's, just their thing. But me, I want to run them all. That's the reason probably why I've got too much money invested in iRacing, because I like to run all sorts of cars.
Yeah, it's a fun time when you nail down when you fall into a weird pairing and you're like, how the hell did that work? But Mr. Exile, thank you for the question. And if you got any more, throw them in there. We're live here on Raggy Productions with Inside ARCS, our first live episode, and we're giving a nice little test here. So any questions you have, whether it's in the real world or through ARCS, throw them in there. We'll get them rocking and rolling. Ryan, we got another one headed towards you, and this comes from you as the owner of ARCS, owner creator. What is your favorite moment from being the owner of ARCS?
By far, and it's not iRacing, it was on Heat. But by far, my favorite moment was when we entered into that tournament that we shall not name. It ended up being kind of a shit show, but it was a really good idea, and there were some really, really good leagues in that tournament. And I think we pulled, I can't even remember who we pulled. I know we raced ENEA in round 2, but round 1, it was Pure Speed Elite Series, which now is actually merged with Shake and Bake, which is Frozen Toes league, Eliza. But anyway, so we pulled Pure Speed Elite Series in round 1. We were fairly new as a league. No one really knew who we were. They had never heard of ARCS, and we were a huge underdog. That team had some really, really fast drivers and some drivers that were well known in the Heat community. I think they even had 1 or 2 on their roster. So I mean, honestly, we came in there and I think we got 10 drivers or 12 drivers or something like that. And I told everybody that was on the team, let's just have some fun. Let's do what we do. And what happens happens. And man, we went out there and waxed their ass. I mean, it was. I think I still have a clip on my phone, maybe, of all of us, like all 10 of us after the race was over. We're in the infield. It was at Chicagoland, and we're in the infield all doing burnouts and doing donuts on the racetrack, and that was probably still to this day the coolest moment that I've ever been a part of in ARCS. I mean, that was really what we preach every day is family, teammates, respect, working together, and man, that was probably one of the best examples of that. We worked together. We had people on strategy. We had people that had speed, and we went out there and just showed everybody who we were and that we had some fast drivers. So I would go with that. That's by far my best moment so far in ARCS.
Very nice. Dustin, when you think of ARCS and all your time inside of it and being a part of it, what stands out to you as like a premier moment in the history of ARCS?
honestly, I think probably the coolest moment is actually our first ever Bristol trip, and even the Talladega trip afterward. But just meeting these guys in person for the very first time, just the excitement of actually, we spent. I mean, COVID was awful. We're stuck in our houses. Can't really socialize outside. I mean, I was able to spot some still at some tracks that were still kind of not having to deal with COVID here in the Virginia, North Carolina, or more Virginia area than North Carolina, but just not really able to get outside. And then the next year we get to meet each other for Bristol dirt race and get to actually, just that was awesome to see faces that you talk to every day. Like I said, we were talking to each other probably way more than anybody else because we couldn't do anything else but online race.
Yeah.
So then the Talladega trip was awesome last year. We got Darlington this year. Just every time we have a trip like that, that to me, it really builds I guess, our relationship as a community with ARCS when you actually get to physically interact and see each other. That I love those parts probably more than I do any of our racing stuff that we've actually done.
Yeah, and we've kind of thrown this around, and most of the episodes, ARCS above all is a family. We race and we get after it on the track and whatnot, but when we come back to the Discord, it's a family, and sometimes families bicker and snip at each other, and then a lot of times it's great conversation and finding those commonalities and or differences that bring you even closer together. And so if you're interested, if you're listening along with us, if you're interested in joining the ARCS family, go to racearcs.com, throw an application in. Admins will get you set up with our series throughout the week. We're racing nearly every day of the week. I know we've got our ARCS Extreme program working on Mondays and Tuesdays. That's short tracks and short dirt ovals, and then you've got our Thursday series of TNT or Thursday Night Thunder, an invite-only league, but if you show your hand well, you will get an invite. And then you have our Friday Ignition series. That's our development series for our top level, as well as intro into TNT. And SNS, which is our Saturday program, is our truck series. And that one has a large field count, and they love to be a little rambunctious in there, but they put on some of the best racing in ARCS. Trucks are one of the most popular vehicles on the service, and it shows every Saturday night with our drivers putting their best foot forward. And then we finish off every Sunday following the Cup Series schedule in real life with our own Cup Series, and that is A Squared. It is a draft-only league, and so there was a draft earlier this year. 7 teams, 4 drivers a team. And now they are deep into the season. 4 races in, every 12 races they get to cut drivers and make roster changes. So that's coming up. So stay tuned here in a few weeks as those nerves begin to unsettle for some of the owners and drivers. But that's our week right there. There's a lot going on. There's a lot coming up. And come on into the family at racearcs.com, and you'll be able to see the entire calendar. It's crazy. I think Ryan would second that. He looked at that and goes, wait, I thought I had an off day. And then we're like, yeah, we filled that with a race, Ryan. So fun times coming for ARCS. I think we said April has 0 off days. There is a race on every day. Ryan, when you look at that April schedule coming up here pretty soon, got a lot going on. Is there something in that schedule that's like standing out to you, or just getting into that full month routine, kind of how you're looking at that month of April?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's a lot of racing, but that's something that I feel like we provide more than any other league out there. Most leagues you join, they may run 1, 2, 3 max times a week. I mean, like we said, in April, we don't have a single day off. Now that is including some of our kind of what we call our sister leagues, like Grassroots and ABN, Brian Rupert over there at Grassroots, and then Carmen Hardy with ABN. They do some stuff Grassroots usually runs on Wednesdays and Saturdays, and then of course ABN, they have a lot of stuff going on over there, but mostly their Champ Car on Thursdays. For those that aren't in TNT, you can go over there and run Champ Car, which is IndyCar basically. But yeah, I mean, obviously I don't plan on running every single race, but I definitely will be running in a lot of them. That's just, I mean, that's the only way that I've found to get better. And I obviously, with the talent we have in ARCS, it is so hard to win. I mean, you can have 4 people show up and it's almost impossible to win now. It was a lot easier in the early days with heat, especially when we only had 15 people show up on a week-to-week basis. And we had a lot of talent back then too, but now it's even worse. I mean, we just have so many people that are so fast, and one of the only ways that I've found that I can do better and get better results is just to race every night, race different cars, different tracks. You start to learn, better entries, better exits on, if you run this car, it helps you with next gen, or if you run this car, it helps you with the trucks. I mean, so it's just race as much as you can. And luckily ARCS has the platform to where you literally, if you wanted to, you can run 7 days a week, or you can run 0. I mean, that's the good thing about, America and making decisions on your own. I mean, we have some people in the Discord that I haven't seen them on track in 6 months, and then you have others that run 4, 5, 6 times a week. So it's just, the more you run, the better you're going to get, faster you're going to get, the more competitive you're going to get. So that's kind of what I'm looking at going into April, is just trying to constantly improve myself, and so that I can be more competitive and try and get some more wins, because like I said, it's hard to win nowadays.
Yes, it is. That is very true. And April's going to be the test for a lot of people. What do they want to be a part of? And obviously, we're deep into championship and championship seasons for all of our series, as April is kind of the midway point for a lot of them, and getting to see where you're going to hash out in those shorter seasoned series. We're going to move into a little bit of I don't know if you call it picking on, but we're going to dive into a few of our ARCS members, and they're some of our more notable ones, and I think Ryan and Dustin kind of know the 2 off the top of their head that I'm talking about. But this question came in through Discord, and it's who would win in a rap battle? Now, this is judging based off their Discord conduct. Quiet or Fisher? Dustin, we're going to throw that one to you first.
A rap battle? Like, ugh.
Knowing how those boys type and talk, are we getting the hit of the century, or do we need to mute?
I gotta, well, we're gonna have to mute, but if I had to pick one, I'm gonna go with Quiet, because I think that's kind of his, he'd go with some 90s or maybe early 2000s, probably something that's awful, but, I got a feeling, I don't know, man, it's gonna be so messed up there. As long as he didn't get excited, we may get something out of him, hey, maybe that's his calling, he doesn't know it, maybe. He does that. And, God, please, I hope he doesn't hear this. And next thing you know, he thinks he's got a rap every time he comes in Discord. That'd be scary.
Yeah, Ryan, what do you think? You got 2 to pick from. They've solo battled in multiple different ways through their time in ARCS, but a rap battle. Quiet, Fisher, what we got?
Man, I don't wish that on my worst enemy. Have to listen to that, but man, I don't know. I guess I'd go with Fisher. I guess I feel like he could probably put together a little bit better sentences. He might could rhyme a little. I don't know if Quiet even knows what rhyming is. So I think Fisher would have a little bit better flow as far as lyrically. Now, if they teamed up, and Fisher wrote the lyrics and Quiet actually rapped the lyrics, I think we might have something. But
Mm.
nah, head to head, Quiet wouldn't know what to say because he can't think of words fast enough. Fisher would get the words, but he wouldn't know how to rap it. So, like I said, I think if you get them two together, I think we might have something.
Definitely something we don't want to try and find out, but you never know what pops in our Discord channels. every day there's something new going on in there. Um, Continuing on with some of our members, we have some younger members. We have members that are into their adult years, and then some that are even have adult kids of their own and grandkids and whatnot. And I looked over our podcast analytics, and we range right in from our primary two is like 18 to 25, and then 37 to 54, and then there's another big one that's in the middle of those two. So most of our family and viewers come in that window. If who are y'all taking from our groupings and everyone that races? The youngest driver and the oldest driver, and then head to head them, who comes out on top? Ryan, we'll go with you first.
I mean, me personally, I go with the older driver, just because there's more wisdom there, there's more experience.
Now you're
But
pinning that older driver up against drivers like Aiden Norman, Seth Wansing, Noah Belleville, and then
yeah,
you're talking the older generation looking like a Donald Ray, Tom Sears. I don't know if he quite qualifies up that high, but you know when you're looking at those, there's definitely two different driving styles. I think you could definitely say that.
yeah. I mean, I agree with that. I guess it would just depend. I mean, if it's like a head-to-head sprint, like 10, 15 laps, I think the younger generation probably comes out on top just because they're really aggressive on how they drive. But even on the long races, they still do really well. So I mean, I don't know, man. It's just tough. I mean, the older generation. I mean, I'm not Donald Ray. I'm not D-Bucks. I'm not at their age. But I am getting up there. So I'm definitely I'm not a young kid anymore. But the younger generation just grew up with video games. I mean, I did too. It was just a little bit different. My stuff was not as intense as what there is out here today with iRacing and some of these other simulations. I didn't have that growing up. And these kids start racing, start playing video games at a very, very young age, and they just continue to get better. When my racing games were out when I was a kid, there was no online play.
Yep.
You couldn't race against your friends unless they were at your house.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, the only competition I had was when me and Cody and Tracy, would all three play NASCAR or whatever together. That was my competition.
Mm-hmm.
So now these kids can play online and they're competing against adults, and that I think gives them a huge advantage because they're constantly learning and getting better. And then by the time they're 15, 16 years old, hell, they've been playing racing games for 10 years online competitively, and it's like the older generation just can't compete with that. Also, we don't have as much time to practice. I mean,
Yeah.
I do right now because I don't have a job, but the core older generation of ARCS, we can't practice 40 hours a week like some of these guys do. We have jobs, we have families, we have things to do outside and things to take care of in the house, and shit like that. So it's
Yep.
the younger generation. I would go with the younger generation just because they have more time to practice, more time to prepare, and they got an earlier start.
Yeah, Dustin, I'll pose it to you between younger and older. In a one race scenario, are you taking the younger or the older generation?
Well, I'm of the older generation. Me and Donald Ray are probably the oldest in the Discord. Jason Alexander too. Um, I'm gonna go with the younger generation because, like Ryan said, get a kid,
Hmm.
get a full time job, and you'll find out quickly that your time for racing is very limited. Your practice time is very limited. If it's a one race scenario, it depends. Am I getting 8 hours to practice for this race before? Because I can tell you, I don't have 8 hours to practice for it. If it's like in 5 minutes, then hey, maybe I have a chance, maybe I don't, But it's still, younger generation has better reflexes in the end than the older generation. But still, there's times that those guys aren't patient and they wreck each
Yep.
other, and maybe the jacket and me or somebody like that's kind of you know, not going to push the envelope, just as crazy as, some of the younger generation. So I don't know. I still like the younger generation over me, just because they have more time. I
Yeah.
mean, that's key on this sim is get as much time as you possibly can have.
Yeah, I think that
Um,
that's one of
if you've got,
those that's one of those where it literally played itself out in Phoenix last week with William Byron and Kevin Harvick. Harvick just slowly made his way up there and said, Here's what I'm gonna do, and I'm gonna keep doing it. By the end, I'm gonna beat you." And he had it won, and then it came down to that short sprint, and the hyper aggressives got that win. And I think what I love watching an ARC sometimes, and this happens a lot in trucks in the SNS series, is the fuel strategy plays when they get past that first 5 lap craziness, and they're forced to tire manage and fuel manage just to get to the end. And I think most of those times we see the Tom Sears, the Thomas Andrews, the Donald Rays pop up into those top 5 positions because the Aiden Normans and those younger drivers are having trouble keeping fuel and keeping the tires underneath them, and they're having to make sacrifices by pitting or speed, and then there go the older guys with all the patience flying right by them. And so I think that's a perfect comparison between real life and sim world. Is depending on the scenario, plays itself out differently every time. Oh, boys, you guys got any questions that have come up in whether in passing or in just off the top of your head that are troubling the world?
I don't.
Ah,
Not at all. Well, I do have a question. It's for Stitch though, and he's not here, so
oh
I
Lord.
don't know what to do. I mean, this was his idea, so I gotta at least throw some shit at him.
Yeah, well, yeah. Let's.
A little bit before we.
We're an hour and we're hour 5 into this thing. Stitch has yet to show up, so we're gonna shade and fade on Stitch today, because the angry Polak and whatever other acronyms and you know descriptive language you can throw at him. We got about 5 minutes. What can we throw Stitch under the bus about besides not showing up?
Yeah, I was gonna say showing up, waking up. He was the one that planned this whole thing, and he was like, "Hey man, we gotta do this. We gotta do this." And I was like, "All right, man, whatever. Let's talk to Kent. We'll do it, man. When do you want to do it? Let's do it. Let's do it Thursday. Let's do it Thursday at 10 a.m. I'm like, 10 a.m. What? I was like, all right, man, whatever. I'm not working.
I was like, Stitch is up at 10 a.m. on a Thursday morning. And now if he was working, I get it. But I was like, he's off of work and he's going to be up? No way, no how.
Yeah. Well, we're going to go with the no way.
Too hard last night.
The no way, no how he found his pillow is, I think, serving him very well right now. That's enough of the Stitch bashing. I'm sure we'll get some messages later when he listens back on this, but he's going to have to listen to over an hour to get there. We're not going to tell him where it is. We continue on here, just a few Q&As, and going back to kind of the strategy plays that come out both in the real world and in Sim. I guess this goes to both y'all. We'll start with Dustin. When it comes to fuel saving and judging your pace, are you basing it? Are you watching other drivers and how they're running, or are you watching something a little more analytical in your data that's keeping you on track for the lap count or the pace you want? And Dustin, go ahead.
I am not a fuel saver. I don't get the art. I I don't know. Ryan is way better at fuel saving. I guess the best thing I can do is I look for key drivers to know right away if they're fuel saving. Ryan being one of them, Lurkin being probably the number one guy I look to see. If I see all of a sudden I'm about to pass him and it's like he's like just falling like a rock, I know in my head that guy's fuel saving. Maybe I should start fuel saving too. Um, I mean, I do try to fuel save on pace laps. I don't run the clutch that everybody else does. I'm in VR, so I don't have a button mapped to my wheel to clutch it. I hear guys talk about clutching it while they race, and I'm like, yeah, that's one of those old man and the reflex thing where if I do something like that, I'm probably going to cut the car off and crash. So, um, honestly, I rather, if it's going to be down to close to fuel mileage, I'm over there going, please be a caution so I don't have to think about fuel mileage. So, but I mean, Lurkin's the probably Thomas Andrews was on heat. I still think he is now. I mean, he's got a brain on him that he knows like right away. This is what you got to save. Like I'm like over here going, all right, I need to. How many laps do I need to save again? And I'll ask him. You know, if we're in a team together, because like he's got it right away. What he's got to save.
Yeah, we just got, before Ryan hops in, Jamie Kerr just popped in. He goes, he's learned a lot from racing around Painter. Some lessons were harder than others. And he says, by the way, I'm closer to that older generation at 37. So hey, you got a friend following it in your footsteps, watching you run around. Ryan, your name got mentioned. Fuel strategy, is that a feather in your cap, or just a lucky coincidence that you kind of know what you're doing?
No, I mean it's something that I've definitely gotten better at over the years. I was kind of with Thomas Andrews in heat. I was really good at it on heat just because we kind of had an advantage because we had clutches and most people didn't when we were running on heat. And it was such a help on heat. It was unbelievable. You could clutch that car and save 10, 15 laps of fuel. It was insane. I mean, it wasn't really realistic, but it worked.
Yeah.
So, you know, I won several of my races that way by just saving fuel, knowing that I could take it to the end. My racing is not easy, but yeah, there's definitely times where I've won stages and one race and finished up top 5 by saving fuel. It's just you just have to feel you have left, and have left, and you try and do that math in your head. And I much while racing on the track. It's definitely not. It's easier on some tracks, especially on a track where you have to kind of let off going into the corner. It's really easy. But some of the tracks where you're more wide open, you can't really save as much. But yeah, I mean, I feel like I've definitely gotten some of my really good finishes by fuel saving. I mean, perfect example is another one that we hadn't really mentioned is Tommy Withers. I mean, he saved and won that Vegas race because of it. So, he's one that's really good at saving his stuff, saving his tires and fuel. But now I kind of just run my own pace. I don't really pay attention to anybody else. Obviously, you do have to kind of pay attention to the leaders because, if you go 2 laps down trying to save fuel, then you and I've done that a couple times where, I backed off too much and then I found myself, pretty much right back where I started. So there's definitely a fine line. For you got to save, but you also have to stay competitive enough that any fuel saving you get, you don't lose it by the leader's basically lapping you 2 times. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I've found success in it, and I'll keep doing it until it, doesn't work for me anymore.
This is true. Yeah, fuel saving, tire saving, it's all an art, and it's a matter of how you drive those cars around and how you want to, I guess, attack a different race. A 40 lap race is different than a 100 lap race, which is different than a 200 lap race, and we've been through all of them, and we're better at some than others, but we keep on motoring along. Here's one. We had a little contentious point a couple weeks ago, and it revolves around restarts. And this is just personal opinion, open air. Dustin, you look at a double file restart. What is fair game and what is dickhead move when it comes to passing on restarts or just overall aggression on restarts, whether it's coming to the line or going into turn one? What say you in your mindset of when you get down to it at a restart?
Well, typically I'm not as aggressive, and maybe I should be. I've had some instances where I wish I would have been, but the NASCAR rule is you have to stay in your lane until the start finish line. You can't pass. Now, one of the things that's been contentious on the actual Cup side has been the lane back, which I think NASCAR's really pounded to these guys that they start penalizing lane back more than a car link to more or less the guy's trying to get a run on a guy um, just past the start finish line. That was happening a lot last year. I noticed the Phoenix race where you would think it would probably be the biggest you would probably see this past week. It was a lot more clean than it had been in the past. Of course, that'll change here and there. You'll see guys, use it. I mean, it's just one of those things that if the rule gets enforced, then guys will just, they won't be as aggressive. Now, going 3 wide into a turn, I've done it to people. Usually I do it to a person if I feel like I don't want to be around them because they're usually going to cause a wreck that I'm usually around. So I'll maybe be aggressive. I usually don't like to, though. I usually like to get past turn 1 before I even start thinking about 3 wide on a guy. But if you have to, sometimes you have to. There was a race earlier this year where I think I put Jeremy 3 wide. And I noticed they wrecked in the back, and I felt bad, but they checked up so much coming off of turn 2 I think it was on a restart that I'm either hitting him in the back or I'm slowing up and I'm getting killed. So my momentum, literally, I turned the wheel to the left hard, and I'm there. And we're going to go into turn 3, and it didn't work well for Jeremy on that end. So,
Yeah.
but I think he came back. He came back and finished well anyway, so it didn't really matter. But yeah, I think just some patience sometimes, but it's tough because people want to get whatever they can get on a restart. Now, I'll say if you got a real car in real life, you got, and some guys will still do it, won't care, but usually you care about that race car more than
Yep.
that position for a half a lap.
Very true, Ryan. I mean, we've had different owner or admin meetings about rules and restart rules and the conduct under restarts and stuff like that. In your personal opinion, what constitutes good restart etiquette and I'm just being an idiot?
Yeah, I mean it should be, and obviously it's we kind of follow NASCAR rules. Should be double file, obviously, and then you stay in your lane and don't pass anyone until the start finish line. Then once you pass the start finish line, it is kind of fair game and it's open to go wherever you want to. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to push it 3 wide going into turn 1. Some people don't, some people do, and with 5 to go, yeah, you're going to see people going 3, 4 wide, doing what they can to make up spots. The ones that I don't understand is when it's lap 15, and we have a restart and somebody pushes it 3 wide going into turn 1 or turn 3. It just, to me, that just makes absolutely no sense whatsoever.
Yeah.
But again, I get it. It's a race. I mean, you're trying to get as much as you can, as quickly as you can, and positions are hard to find on the track. So I get it. But at the same time, it's just like, lap 15, just stay in line, try and pass that person on the back straightaway or the next turn or 2 turns from now, but everybody drives different. That's the joy of racing. But
Yeah, well, we have been joined in the chat by one Patrick Allen Jr., aka Quiet, and to just give you a quick glimpse into how that rap battle was going, this is the comment we got. Look this sexy ladies. I
yeah,
I don't know what to take from it, but
Oh,
hey,
God.
gold.
that is one lyrical line from one Patrick Allen Jr., aka Quiet. So take it take it how you will. But that's how it goes. We're continuing on with our Q&A session. So if you've got a question on your mind, don't matter what it's about, we're shooting the breeze on just about every topic when it comes through. Here's something I want to bring up. We talk about, Dustin mentions like, drive it like you own this car, and you're gonna have to fix this puppy if you wreck it in corner 1 on lap 1. And Ryan talked about it's lap 15. What are we doing? Well, what are your thoughts about taking away, especially at the top level, say maybe just the A squared level, taking away the fast repair, privilege, and being like, look, here's your one car. Your team is depending on you to keep this car intact and come home with a good finish. Do you think that's something that could incentivize drivers to cool it and make sure they get to the finish, or it just wouldn't matter, and you just end up with 10 cars at the end because those are the ones that survived? Ryan, I'll let you.
Yeah, we talked about this before the season. Me and the A squared admins. Obviously, I can't speak for the other leagues, but we did talk about it. There was a strong consideration, actually from my end more than my admins, to change it to 0 fast repairs. Other than super speedways, we were going to keep it at 1 fast repair for super speedways. But I kind of got outvoted. Everybody kind of was like, well, we do 0 is fine, but say you get caught up in a something stupid where somebody was driving too hard and wrecked, and then you got collected in it and it wasn't your fault. And I was like, well, yeah, I mean, but that's racing, like, but so yeah, it was definitely discussed. I think probably next year, I don't think you'll see that fast repair. But for this year, we did discuss it, and we decided to just keep it at 1 all the way across the board for all tracks. But I do agree. I mean, I've run in leagues before where they've had 0 fast repairs, and honestly, the racing wasn't that much different, at least in my experience in the races that I ran. But that's not to say that it wouldn't change our racing. I mean, it very well could. I mean, it's got to change it a little bit to know that, hey, I have no chances. Like, if I wreck this thing, my race is done. So yeah, it was definitely discussed, but never, like I said, I kind of got outvoted, and so we kept it with 1. But it's something that I think moving forward in the future, probably next year, I think you probably won't see that fast repair.
Yeah. Dustin, does that fit kind of your driving style better than having that mulligan in your back pocket?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always, I try not to even touch people like, Durham or anything like that. That fits my racing big time. I will say, with the worst thing in the world is we go into Las Vegas and 12 cars get taken out in one wreck because we've seen it happen. And next thing you know, we only got a 12 car battle because we only got 40 or only 24 cars. If we had a 40 car field, I like the no fast repair. because you've got more cars on the track. But
Yeah.
I would hate to see our races be 6, 7 cars left on the track and stuff like that because we've all some odd reason crashed on lap one. Um, it and as we get better and we get more skillful, and drivers get these cars down pat, maybe we could do that. I still feel like there's some people don't understand these cars and struggle,
Yeah.
and usually they're the ones who find themselves in a crash every single week, or almost every single week. That just right now, I don't know, that fast repair kind of helps them stay on the course of racing. So I don't know. Me personally, I love it because it fits my driving style. But I see the other end of it too.
Yeah, it definitely gives you that. Oh, you can have one mess up and then you're able to reset and be like, okay, I know what that felt like. I shouldn't do it again. It also allows the over aggressives to be over aggressive and make their mistake that way, and then they just get to reset, and then they're like, okay, I can't wreck this one. Where the zero comes in, at least in my perspective, with that, it only takes one time. One guy to do something dumb and take out 6 or 7 guys, and they're all on him, and then the whole league is like, this is what we expect from you now. That then they step back and be like, oh, I can't do that, all right? Because I've already got 6 guys after me, and I do this again, I could have 12. Let's back it up a little bit, and then I think it doesn't like tamp down their aggression, but it makes them use their brain to be like, okay, when can I use it? Oh, I have a hole here, I can use it here. It's first lap on a restart. I'm going to take it 3 on a dirty track up high. Probably not your best, solution. I think we saw it a little bit, and this is kind of throwing Kerr under the bus at Daytona and the move he made on lap 1, and it caused the issue with the hole was there, and I went for it, and I wasn't slowing down, and then 7, 8 cars had problems after that. I think, it eliminates those because you're like, I get one, and that's it, and whatever else I can fix. So I'm interested to see what that looks like with at least our top level where you're drafted for a reason. You're all going for a championship, whether it's team or driver. You're expected to get the car to the finish, and making a mistake, it's no different than real life. You make the mistake, and you're gonna have to pay that consequence at that time. Sometimes it's a bumper, sometimes it's the engine. So I'd love to hear what other people say. There's a couple of agreeers in there that say like it just keeps people from doing stupid things, but that's why the fast repair is there. It's not real. It's sim world, but we like to keep it as real as possible. We did hear from our companion Stitch. His pillow decided to stop cuddling with him, so he joined us in chat here for a little bit, and he actually asked D-Bucks, why didn't you call him? I don't know why it would have been the onus on you to do it, but we did. We called him. He's
I should.
so
Yes.
you guys can give hell to Stitch in the chat. He's over there hanging out. But we've been rocking and rolling here for about an hour and a half now, shooting the breeze on just about anything. Ryan, is any questions that have come across your dial that you want to bring up?
No, I haven't had any questions sent to me, so I guess nobody has any questions about ARCS, so maybe everybody should just shut up and race and quit bitching and complaining.
Yeah, I think we've had our fill of that. I think that was just March. The beginning of March, everyone was caught their frustration bug, and now we're off to the races where everyone's gonna keep it clean, and there's gonna be 0 X's on everyone's cars, which was not what happened at Phoenix. I think there's one car with a 0, and everyone else was double digits, at least 10 or more. Oh, here's one. I think it goes along with the fast repair requirement, uh, or taking that away. But if we left fast repair at 1, but put a incident limit, say 25 or 30 points, do you think that would deter things, and knowing is like, okay, I can only hit a car 4 times or make contact with a car 4 times, and then I am automatically kicked out of the race by the computer. Ryan, do you think that would be an easier way to go? Because then you're like, look, it's automated. It flows right with the service, and do you think that would be something that would go over better than just taking fast repairs away?
Yes, and no at the same time. Um, yes, because obviously it would automate things. No, because people are gonna bitch about it. Um, I mean, it doesn't matter what you do, people bitch about it. But we did discuss that also, but we were kind of more along the lines of after a certain, whether it be 20x or whatever, we would require a drive-through, and then basically do like a drive-through penalty, maybe every 20 up until 40 or something, and then it would be DQ'd. So we were gonna go more with the penalizing for incident, and instead of like straight disqualification.
Disqualifications, okay.
Yeah, but again, we never, that didn't happen. I'm trying to leave it. Again, I'm trying to keep this series, at least my series with A Squared and Ignition, with Smil kind of running that, but me kind of being over that. We're trying our best to keep it as realistic to NASCAR as we possibly can get, and obviously, they do have drive-throughs for when people do stupid things on the racetrack, and we do the same thing, whether it's EOLs or penalties after the race. But NASCAR obviously doesn't really have that disqualification. So we tried to just keep it as close as we could. That's why I was trying to push 0 fast repairs as much as I was.
Yeah.
Because we talk about trying to be just like NASCAR, and NASCAR obviously they don't get a fast repair, they don't get a do-over. If you wreck that car, you're done. So that's one of the main reasons why I was pushing to have just 0 fast repairs, no DQ, no penalization. Just bring your car that you brought to the racetrack and race it, and if it wrecks, load it up on the trailer and come back next weekend. So yeah, we've discussed the penalizations, and I think in some series it would work really well. SNS, Ignition, I think that if you had that for them, I think that would work very, very well for those series, especially SNS, because there's so many drivers every Saturday night.
It would almost, I wonder if it would almost be like, all right, hey, you can have unlimited fast repairs. That way you're always up to speed. You can always, be a part of the action. But you get 16 points, and that's it. That means you can hit a truck, hit anything, or a vehicle 4 times, and that's it. And you're out. That way you're not like, I got to drive a broken truck all the way around for the next 30 laps. No, fix it, but you're at 8x, which means you get 2 more. And obviously, different things can happen with hitting walls and stuff like that. Dustin, do you think like the penalization X's way of going about it versus the fast repair way of going about it, which way do you think appeases the driver and emotions more, or which one's gonna face more blowback?
Well, the penalization I've ran in leagues have had, that kind of a thing. I ran one time. I was running Daytona. I got into a wreck. Just nowhere to go. Got going, and somebody comes across and hits me again, and it kicked me out. And I was like, man, I had a fast repair also, but I was like, man, that stinks. I didn't even do anything right here, and some guy hits me as we're trying to get our trucks back going, and that was the end of my day. And I was like, that kind of stinks. But then at the same time, like I said, I'm all for things that'll actually calm people down and make them drive with a little less aggression. That fits my style. And like I said, it's not going to fit everybody else's style, and I get that. You know, some people are going to want fast repairs and stuff like that, so they can be ultra aggressive. You know,
Yeah.
just I, I kind of like I kind of like that, but at the same time, I get it. It's going to probably cause a lot of issues when you get kicked from a race because
Yeah.
some other guy caused you to get kicked.
I think that's the only. Well, I mean, it's a downfall of both scenarios because if you have zero fast repairs and some idiot does something, well, you got collected. No different than in real life. Same way over on the X's side. Now, do you get if you're a clean driver, do you get collected 4 times and it's just a bad luck day and you're out? Maybe. It's not like you get hit once and you get kicked. So I think there's a little more leniency on the X's part, where if you give them 16 or 20X, you got to hit a few things before you're out of the race. And if you all 5 of them are someone else's fault, maybe there's a little more mirror work you need to do. Versus the no fast repair, it's one chance, and if someone does something dumb, that's it for both of you. So it's a interesting debate to be had, and I think admins will probably have it, and we'll see where we go for off season. But right now we're one fast repair for I think all the leagues, and no penalties, but there's post race penalties for idiocy. Let's finish up on this one, and we'll do one where we talked about the best moments in ARCS history with Ryan and Dustin. I'll start with Dustin on this one, and then we'll go to Ryan. But give us the biggest, idiotic, dumbest moment that you can think of on track in ARCS history. What's something that you're like, what just happened? I don't have words to explain this.
Well, I kind of have a 1A, 1B, and they both are kind of the same situation. We had on heat, Mark, the Fat Sharks, literally stopped at, I think it was when they put the Roval, and stopped on the track to let somebody else win so that person could advance in the playoffs, which actually affected me. But we later changed the rule and had to penalize Mark, which he had made plenty of mistakes like that, and we actually removed him from the server. And then we had one not too long ago, I think it was last year. I was not in a race, but same situation. Just I do not like that kind of racing. It's in a rule book, but we had one of the guys stop and let another guy win so that he can make the playoffs, which affected so many other people playoff chances, and that guy was removed from the server. So just that kind of stuff right there of just literally stopping and making a mockery of the league is high on my list.
I got you. Ryan, you've been around ARC since its inception. You've seen some really cool highs with all the different events and races we've won as teams and different individual state, and then we've seen some of the knucklehead moves that have gone on. Any one that like stands out that's like, oh my god, I can't believe that happened.
Yeah, I mean the two that Dustin mentioned are pretty high on my list as well. The fact that you would just pull over and sacrifice a win just to, let someone else win, and I get it. I get the concept behind it, but at the end of the day, it's like what in the,
Yeah.
what are you doing? Other than those two, there was a time last year, I think it was after Kansas, that I had to have a kind of a meeting with everybody and tell them, hey, this is like, y'all got to start driving better. I mean, it was just bad overall for everyone at the end of last year. And then after that, it cleaned up. And then, of course, after last Sunday, I think that was a bad race too. I mean, y'all have heard my views on it from the podcast episode, but I think that those would probably be also kind of high up on my list, just because it was, I was more disappointed, I guess, that we were racing the way that we were racing. But other than that, just pretty much any time that Patrick Allen Jr. and Nicholas Fisher are on track, usually something stupid happens. So those are always fun to watch too, especially when they get around each other, because their egos are like,
yeah.
they like feed off each other, and then one of them passes another one. I mean, they're in Discord talking about, well, I finished 2 spots better than you, and they finished 15th and 17th. So it's just it's entertainment between those two, but sometimes unfortunately they have some issues where it causes some on track problems sometimes.
Yeah, I would have never thought that our league would have been able to comparably correlate and put 2 drivers together other than those 2 and call them both they drive for Rick Ware Racing, and that's just how it goes.
Pretty much. Yep.
Can't get away from each other and can't drive around each other either. So if you want to see that kind of show, come watch my race control, because for some reason it always jumps over to those 2 knuckleheads because there's always action going on around them, and I have my stuff tuned up for when crashes occur. And so I don't get to watch the cool racing, I get to watch the knucklehead racing. But I want to thank Ryan and Tustin for coming on the first live Inside ARCS podcast. We covered a lot of different things, had technical difficulties early, but we got those figured out and got our beautiful faces, I guess you could call that, up on the screen for you. But we've got it rocking and rolling, and we'll look to do this some more as we continue on through the season. But please like and subscribe here on Raggy Productions. This is where all the Inside ARCS podcast videos will be posted, as well as other productions through this channel. The Inside ARCS podcast, in just its podcast form, is over on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Please go listen there. Give those a like and share them around to your friends. If you're interested in becoming a member of the ARCS family, go to racearcs.com. Do that, fill out the application, and hop into our Discord. We'll get you set up to get on track with us, or just to watch along and be a part of the family and part of the constant communication and banter that goes on in our Discord channel. So from everyone at ARCS and here for Inside ARCS, we want to thank you all for coming out, and we'll see you on the next one after A Squared at Atlanta.